we'll start with introduction. So I am Nishant. I'm the product owner for the team.
Hi, I'm Suraj. I'm like a developer and tech lead kind of thing. And sometimes a Scrum Master also if in their absence. So you can treat like that.
Hey guys, I'm Sonal. I'm the architect for the two teams.
Hi guys, my name is Maninder and I work as a software engineer at GE Healthcare.
Hello guys, I'm Vishwas Srivastav. I work as a developer.
Can we get one more mic, please? Thanks. Okay, so the team is Prayas and Sankalp. Prayas, because we keep on trying again and again. We're not going to get it right the first time, but we will eventually get it right what the customer wants. And our customer, our end customer is the patient. Now, whatever we do in the team, we always think that, is this something that's going to benefit the end patient or not? That's our driving factor. And that's the ideology which we drive across as well. Now, I'm going to start with saying working software over comprehensive documentation. All of you know this, but our slides are not that great. So all the team is here and we're just going to talk about it, right? So we'll just go to the next one. And what we want to drive is the culture. Let's go back to the challenges as well. Yeah. So there are challenges, but see, with every team, this team was formed around 10 to 11 months back. It's a fairly new team. And we have the product owner, which is me, the Scrum Master, all the development team sitting co-located next to each other all the time, and we kind of have a lot of fun. And these challenges which you see are like close to 1 year old. We don't see them as challenges anymore, and we're here to share our story. So at the end of our 7 more minutes, you should be able to get an understanding what we as Prayas and Sankalp at GE Healthcare are. So we'll go from a cultural standpoint, and I'm not going to talk a lot. I'm going to leave it to you guys.
So as part of culture, what I feel is how I spend my day. So basically we start our day with the stand-up. So the benefit of stand-up is I get to know what I am doing and where my team is going, what others are doing. I get a sync up. And also we look up at the board, we can prioritize things, we can take up, if I am done with my work, so I take up new things, and which is on priority. So we do these things, then after that we start with our work, then we collaborate with other teams also, whatever we face challenges, then we collaborate with them.
Yeah. And we get stuck, as all teams, we do get stuck. It's not that it's all roller coaster and nice. And we discuss within the team if we are able to find a solution. If not, we go out all the way to the customer, and which is, in this case, our internal customers. And we're just not taking their requirements, no. We go ask them the question of, what is your problem? We're trying to add value in the end. It's just not taking requirements and getting done with it. That's not our philosophy. So we go ask, if you want to build a rocket for us, for example, why do you want to build that rocket? Okay, and then you get more insights to it. So we're more of a consultants to our customers. And once we do that, we gain the trust. The whole team is present as part of our initial product discovery. We have our customer interactions a lot. We had one last evening as well, and the whole team is going to be present. You might not find me as a product owner, but the team would be there. So essentially what we want is to give out value. And that's what we do. And if we get stuck, we do have fights within the team, end of a month or whenever needed. We just go out for a drink, have fun, come back, go home. So all that is fun. So what I feel is the team here, and I'll just leave you guys. We feel we are empowered. We can make a change. We are co-located, which means that there's no processes around sending mails and all. We hate processes. We just feel very comfortable just to go and talk to that person and say, hey, there's a problem, let's do something about it, rather than going through all those metrics. And yeah, healthcare is a regulated industry, so we have those metrics, but we just don't want to looking at that again and again.
Yeah, just to tell you more about the team. So as Nishant said, right, we are pretty new team to begin with. We have people coming from a lot of organizations. Everybody had a pretty much fixed area of expertise. So we had a lot of problem assigning tasks when we started this. And so to encounter this, we had knowledge sharing sessions so that everybody can share their own expertise, what they're working on. So everybody is on the same page. We had demos planned every alternate day or every day as required. So everybody can pick up almost anything, right? So
Yeah, so to talk about the next thing, the engineering agility. How did we drive that, right? So as everybody knows, DoD is part of every story or every feature that we define. But what people tend to do is we would break up stories so that the design comes first as one story, the implementation next, testing or probably the documentation would always go as the last one. So what we try to do, something different, is we put everything as part of the same story. If it doesn't get done, it doesn't get done. So that's one thing that we always used to drive. And one more thing that we also try to do was, if anything needs to be done twice by anyone, it has to be automated so that there's no repetition of work.
And yeah, in automation thing, like we wrote so many things like TDD, BDD, but everybody is telling like if you will write JUnit, it should be pass. But we are believing on like if you are write JUnit, it will be fail one day. It must be. So we are believing on fast fail because we are our end customer is like a patient. So we are believing on that, and we are going very like if you will fail fast, then you will like do well, and you create a very valuable product actually.
Precisely.
If you will not see like a failure scenario thing, we are covering all those things in automation, all those kind of things. So it's a checkpoint for DoD also, like how you will fail, and it must be covered in your automation.
Yeah, so we write tests to fail. I mean, everybody writes a lot of test cases, thousands, 10,000, 500, I don't know. But if it is passing every time, it's not adding value. Yes, there won't be any regression. We need to run that. We do it at every check-in. The pipeline goes through. But let's look at writing those tests which are actually going to fail. That's the key. Because we can keep on just going through with our use cases, but those failure modes are, to us, very important. And one of the things which we want to do is, it's not requirements for us, it's conversations. So we have conversations, we capture conversations, and then we automate those conversations. These are three principles we go. We don't call them requirements at all. Because a requirement is like a vacation photo. All of you would have heard about a vacation photo. Now, assume there is a tree, and you just look at the tree, and somebody asks you what it is. So you just say, okay, it's a tree, and it's a barren tree. But the team here, let's assume we went to Goa. We are on a small island in Goa. We are just sitting next to a shack with a beer, and then there's a nice-looking barren tree there, and we just took a photo. If you ask the team, it's going to tell you, we were in Goa, we are living that moment, and then, yeah, it's a tree there, but what they're going to think about is the beer in their hands and not the tree, right? So that's the difference between requirements, that's that barren tree, whereas the scenario, the conversation, and we capture that as GWT, as given when then. And once we have those conversations, record that as a given when then, like a specification by example, and then when we automate them, you're essentially not automating the requirements. You're automating that behavior. And that's precisely what gets us closer to the customers, and in the end, deliver value. Yeah, and maybe we can talk about business agility, but one example I'd like to give, when we started, our release cycles were like 4 weeks. It's months. It is still high across. And through this, one measurable parameter, apart from the velocity and other things, is now our release cycle is 1 to 3 days. And essentially that we don't say that we are going to go ahead and we are done with everything. There's still a lot of scope for improvement. But our retrospectives, which we consider as the most important part, help us drive that and learn continuously. That's it.
Thank you very much, Team GE Healthcare. Let's give them a big round of applause. Questions from the judges?
You come from health, so how do you manage regulatory
Yep.
changes and audits and all of that?
Exactly. So RDHF, which we call as a design history file, that's taking care of the regulatory form. We're going lean on that. And one of the items when I talked about 4 weeks was a lot of documentation around regulatory stuff was happening. Now, if you look at the regulations, right, they don't care about the documentation. You can talk about FDA and then Europe. They talk about patient safety, right? As long as we are able to convince, have a justifiable solution and an objective evidence, we are good to go. So essentially, we've reduced that. Actually, right now, if I have to make a release, I just have 2 documents to release out. Essentially, we had 9 to 10, maybe 1 year back. And when you go back to the regulatory guys and you tell them this is what it is, they're fine with it. I mean, essentially, probably nobody tried it. You guys can just try out and talk to them as well. They're also your stakeholders, right?
From the perspective of the actual delivery, the operations part, what was either what was the driver in the month that wasn't documentation, or what's keeping you at 1 to 3 days?
So yeah, so when we started, it took 1 month, basically because there was no automation and every testing was manual, and they were like, the documentation again was being pushed to the last, the reviews took a lot of time, and yeah, again testing. So what we did with DevOps is we have a CI/CD CT pipeline. So every time a developer checks in a code, it gets completely integrated, the quality gates are tested, it gets deployed on the target system, and even the documentation, like the release notes, is done. So once you have it all ready, all you have to do is just take it into a PDF and get it reviewed. So that's how we have achieved like the faster release cycle.
So the remaining 1 to 3 days is basically the final review process?
Yeah.
We still have those 2 documents, right?
Thank you. So you mentioned and called out the BDD process, the give and win then. So I'm just curious, what other types of testing do you have, and are those incorporated in the pipeline?
So yeah, the BDDs covers most of the scenarios. So when we write the BDDs, we write a good share of success scenarios and the failure scenarios. But that would cover say 80-95% of the behavior that we want. But still there would be some expert and exploratory testing which would be done, which would be manual, which would also be done towards the end before the release.
So the BDD tests are the only tests that run in the pipeline then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about your customer. So what have you improved? How have you improved their life?
Exactly, precisely. So many examples, and one such example is the team here. We are part of the digital transformation journey for healthcare. So we build a platform, and our customers are many folds. It's going to be a modality which is a CT machine, MRI, ultrasound, X-ray, and then their customers, technicians, hospitals, doctors, radiologists, and then eventually the patients. And one such thing, which was a problem without the digital transformation, is you build a solution with one modality, let's say an X-ray, and you have the same need, let's say in a CT product, and the patient there is not able to get the right diagnosis because there's some piece of software which is of value here and can be reused, but you essentially can't shove the same software there because there is no digital transformation link between these 2 devices, right? Now with the Prayas and Sankalp team coming into picture and having that platform, And the platform being common across these devices, all we need to do is, we as platforms and modalities, which is CTMR and their teams, they build it once, they put it on the platform, and then it just it just flows to the other device, and then they can use it. So essentially, what we provide is the problem solved once, and the solution for that can be reused. And reuse is our biggest stake here. We do not want to do things twice. But you can have them customize and solve your problems, for sure.
Define release in your context to me then. What does it mean that you release every 1 to 3 days? Is that you release to a platform that then gets used?
Yeah.
How often does it go down to an actual physical device?
Okay. So we have a 2-week sprint cycle, and at the end of each sprint, there is an engineering release which goes out. These releases are linked, so all of that is automated. So in the end, you would finally have your artifacts in Artifactory. And the modality software has to pull that. So that's our first set of customers. And then this feeds into their release cycle. So there's maybe 2 weeks of Scrum, of sprint. And once that is done, it goes to one more level of the modality, doing a verification validation, and then it goes to the customer. So which is why, if you look at 4 weeks for a release by a platform, and then 4 weeks by a modality, and then 4 weeks of VNV, you're essentially talking 6 months. So your requirement or the conversation which you had with your customer was 6 months old. And now you're giving it to them. Now they love it because it's good. But then by that 6 months, you have a 6 months of product backlog. And that's essentially a problem, let's say for me, if I talk about a product owner, right? How to maintain that product backlog. So when we reduce it, now we make it 2 weeks. And we also make sure that any check-in, it goes through the pipeline, and you have a product which is out there and essentially product quality. A modality need not wait for those 2 weeks as well. They can just pull it from Artifactory and then feed it into their product lines. So it's like we are ready at any given point in time. But yes, we have a 2-week sprint cycle. So at the end of 2 weeks, we are still ready. At the end of maybe day 3, we are also ready, but with less scope, but a working software for sure.
Just would like to add that this is rapid compared to healthcare standards.
Okay, we can take one question from the audience. Come on, this is your opportunity. One last question.
Hey guys, this is Saurabh from R1 RCM. Good job done to all of the teams who presented here. The question goes on, because I come from a development background, what are the engineering practices that you stressed upon? Because everything that you showed is around processes, right? I couldn't see any improvement on the engineering practices that you stressed on.
So as for engineering practices, one thing was like during development, it's all goes into a pipeline. So which was again missing from initial things. And then one challenge that we faced initially was we work from infrastructure and platforms. So there's no pipeline which is ready, which is available that you can leverage. So we had to build the pipeline from scratch because it was a custom pipeline built for us. So that took a very long time for us, and it was challenging because DevOps has a central team, which is a different team working with us, which is not the same team. So that was one thing we improved upon as engineering. Another thing I would say is, one other thing that we're working on is the delivery process, which is we create the VMs on the fly, and then we deploy our software, and then that VM goes down once our testing is done.
Just to add to what Sunil said, we are more aligned on using open source softwares in our whatever we are doing. So whatever is already there, what is safe and reliable to use. So we have many open source technologies which we have used in our product. So that is one thing.
Yeah, and just let me add to what Maninder said. These open sources are like certified regulatory. So it's going via that process. And yeah, it takes us 5 minutes for us to spawn up our test beds and just bring it down.
Okay, thank you, Team GE Healthcare. A big rounds of applause.